Hi, Mark the Stampede here. I'm going to review the 8BitDo Pro 2 controller. Is this the ultimate 2D controller for the Switch? The overall design is like a mix of the DualShock and SNES controllers. It supports Switch, PC, Mac, and Android. It looks and feels like a premium controller from the color scheme and design, the grip texture on the back, and the textured rim on the control sticks. It supports Bluetooth and has every needed Switch button and function. There's a home button, a capture button, a sync button, and 2 programmable back bumpers. The D-Pad is great. The only other better D-pads on the Switch are on Nintendo Switch Online controllers. The control sticks feel nice, but are a little too small for me. The select and start buttons are a bit awkwardly placed, right in the center of the controller. They have a nice Super Nintendo soft mushy feel. The face buttons are set up like the SNES controller and are perfect. They aren't too high or too low and have the right press and travel. The bumpers and triggers feel very much like a DualShock controller, but the bumpers are above the triggers to keep the Nintendo feel. They're a little loose for my preference, but the sensitivity can be adjusted in the 8BitDo software. I was having issues connecting to the Switch when I was just pressing the sync button. But when I treated it like an old 8BitDo controller and pressed start and B at the same time, I had no trouble connecting. Just not sure why that's not in the manual. For modern day 2D games such as retro platformers, action games, and side-scrolling shooters, this is perfect. For retro arcade games, this is a controller I'm going to use from now on. I played a few rounds of Pac-Man 99 with this and it was great. This also works amazingly for any of the SNES Switch Online games. The layout fits right into the original Super Nintendo layout. For the NES Switch Online games, I was having a bit more trouble. The D-pad works great, but the B and A buttons aren't placed in the same way as they are on the original NES controller. Personally, I find them easier to play with an NES-type controller, like another 8BitDo controller or the Switch Online controller. For third-person games or games that require extensive use of the control sticks, I would not recommend this. The sticks are just too small. I find it hard to be accurate with sticks this size. I also tested this on my PC. Connecting it was a breeze through Bluetooth. You can also connect it with a USB cable if you'd like. But for those thinking of using it to play retro games, it doesn't quite do it. Yes, it's a great controller to use for older games, but connecting it in RetroArch required a lot of remapping for each system. I also didn't have any issues getting it to connect in Steam or in the Xbox PC app. But this isn't really the controller for those games. If I'm using a controller for most modern PC games, the wired Xbox 360 controller works perfectly. It doesn't require any remapping. Or if you have an Xbox One or the new Xbox controller, just use that. This doesn't support Amiibos. This isn't a deal breaker for me, as very few third-party controllers do. This also doesn't allow you to wake up the Switch with a button press, which I actually prefer because I have so many controllers that the less that do that, the better. It does support motion control and it seems to work fine. I never had any Bluetooth issues with the controller. I thought I did, but I just wasn't syncing it right. So how does this stack up against other controllers? The Pro controller is the de facto best controller for the Switch. If you're happy with that, there's really no reason to buy this. But if you find the D-pad mushy and the face buttons not suited for retro or 3D games, this is a good fit. You could then reasonably use this for the 2D games and the Pro controller for everything else. How does this compare to the Nintendo Switch Online controllers? It's almost there, but it doesn't quite have the same D-pad. Those controllers are almost perfect replicas of the originals. If you already have one of those controllers and are only playing Switch Online retro games, there's no reason to get this. It does have the home and capture buttons as one advantage over them. What if you already have an existing SNES or NES 8-bit Pro controller like the SM30? If you already have an SM30 and you're mostly playing SNES games, there's again not much of a reason to upgrade. So what if you have the previous version of this controller, the 8BitDo SM30 Pro Plus? Is there any compelling reason to upgrade? Only if you have money burning a hole in your pocket. I don't have one in hand, but after some research on the web, it seems the only upgrades are the textured grip on the back and the extraneous back bumpers. This is the overall best controller for 2D games on the Switch, the absolute best controller to play Celeste with. But if you're already satisfied with your current 2D controller, there's probably not a compelling reason to buy this. This is not good for 3D games. With all the caveats I mentioned, I really recommend this controller. Let me know if you like this video, and if you have any questions or comments, and if you'd like to see any more controller reviews, just leave a comment down below. And until next time, take it easy.